Steve! Oh my goodness! Yeah! Holy sh!
Alright folks, what you've already deducted by the thumbnail and the title, we're going to see what it takes to make this thing into a decent wheeler. This is a 97 Explorer. As you can see, it's a two-door sport model. It's got the V6 automatic. The axles are geared 410. My daughter drove this in high school, and then last summer when she got I forget what year it was, a 2014 Dodge truck, this ended up parked. So it's been sitting for pretty much maybe a little over a year. Once she got that Dodge truck, I thought, hell, I'm going to resell this, get some of my money back. But no, she informed me she wanted to take this wheeling, so maybe now is the occasion. Labor Day weekend's coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're planning on wheeling over to my Obi like we do all the time. I'm not sure that's where this is going to wheel, but that's kind of what it's looking like. Man, it is a hot one. It's going to be hot all week. So yeah, lucky you, you get to see me work without my shirt.
You like what you see?
Let's see if we can throw a battery in it, get the tires aired up, see if she'll fire up and get over to the shop. Well, you guys watching may not be liking the no shirt action, but the mosquitoes here are loving it. Yeah. All right, let's see how she feels about life in general for a moment. Okay, fuel pump's working. We are in business. Alright, I made it to the shop. As I recall, I think she drove this thing for a good 3 or 4 years, and for the most part it was a damn good, reliable vehicle. The only two major things I can think of I ever had to do to it, it developed a coolant leak on the intake manifold. So that wasn't a terribly hard job to do. It just took a few hours, pull it all off and re-gasket that. And the brakes got screwy, and I determined it was the ABS bullshit. So as you can see, there used to be a big ABS module in here that it's all gone, and she's just regular old non-ABS brakes now. Nice and simple. Okay, so here's my plan for this. I'm concentrating on 3 areas: traction, traction, and tow points for when the traction fails you. My first area of traction will be the tires, because those are obviously what touch the ground. It may end up running these tires, which aren't terrible, but for wheeling tires, and not so hot. I have a few options here. This was the first option I was thinking about. I picked these up off Facebook Marketplace last winter. Didn't have a use for them, threw them in the shed, thought I'll find a use for them someday. But I think these are going to be too tall for that Explorer. I got this one mounted up on a wheel and I'll try it, but yeah, I'm thinking they're going to be too tall. I've also got these. These are a 32, but two things with these: they take a 14-inch rim. These are the only 14s I've got. And I'm not sure if you're just wheeling in a mud-only area, I think these would hold up okay, but I think where we wheel over there at my Obi, there's lots of shale piles and whatnot. I think it's going to tear these tires up. Now these are another option. These were given to me. Guy just wanted them out of there. They're wide, they're a skid loader tire, really stiff sidewall. It says they're a 29 1250 by 15, but they actually measure 27. I'm not crazy about this option as much as I like tractor tires. Yeah, there's not much sidewall there. Lugs are rounded off, but you know, it is a possibility. Another thing is I don't think I have any rims around here. I'm going to investigate that later. I'm thinking these are going to take at least a minimum 8-inch rim. I've got some 8-inch rims, but they are being currently used on all sorts of other manner of stuff. I'd have to try to round them all up. And here is yet a fifth option. Some of you might remember this truck from Junkyard Diggs' Cheap Truck Challenge. These are just a 30-inch tire, mud tire. They're dry rotted pretty bad, but I put tire chains on them. These are kind of looking like they might be the front runner. They should fit okay and clear, but we shall see. Okay, as I said, my second angle of attack is also going to be traction. Mini spool for the rear. There's a local swap meet here every winter, Wild Wade's up at the Des Moines Fairgrounds, and Quick Performance out of Ames is always there, and they had these there this past winter for $60 a piece, I believe. I went ahead and bought 2 of them. So I got another one for future use. I'm not going to do anything to the front differential. That would just be a huge pain in the ass to try to do something with it. And I honestly, I haven't even done the research to know what size that differential is. But like I said, it would just be a huge pain in the ass to put something in it. This should be cheap and easy just doing the rear, and should make a world of difference over an open differential. Third angle of attack, toe points, because if you're going to go wheeling, you're going to need them. This receiver here should do. It's kind of bad in that you can always, you know, put the toe strap in there, throw it in there, and it's always hooked up, you know, if you end up with the ass end down in a mud hole on something. But that also puts the toe strap at risk of getting damaged doing that too, leaving it in there on something relatively low like this. So this isn't a priority, but if I get time, I might actually make some sort of a mount right up in here for a tow hook. They'll be easier to get to and out of harm's way. Now for the front, I think the simplest thing to do, I'm just going to unbolt this front bumper. It's going to go bye-bye, and then once I get that out of the way, I'll see what I got to deal with up here with frame rails for putting some tow hooks or some sort of a recovery loop or something up there anyway. But anyway, let's get busy. Enough with the blah blah. This is actually showing more promise than I thought. Here was my big concerns back here. It looks like it'll just clear, and because this is an independent front suspension, not leaf spring or anything like that, as the suspension moves, it shouldn't actually push back unless something in there's really worn out or broke. I'm going to fire it up and run it through the steering cycle and see how well it clears there. Well, as you can see, that was pretty close, and the lugs actually did kind of get into that broken out spot on the fender flare, so it might actually tear up the fender flares, but honestly I expected those to get tore up anyway out wheeling. But I've got some 2-inch wheel spacers here I bought at the Iola, Wisconsin swap meet about a little over a month ago, just for this. If I ever built this out, get that tire and wheel out, give it a little more width and stance for stability. I'm going to throw one of those on and see how it should make the clearance in there even worse, because then as you push the tire out here, instead of it actually pivoting like this, it actually swings the tire in an arch. Alright, this is it with the 2-inch spacer on it. I don't really advocate the use of spacers, but I think in this case, being off-road, well, that actually probably about the worst environment for one of them. But yeah, it's not like you're whistling down the interstate at 70 miles an hour. Yeah, I am predicting it will actually touch right there. Yeah, I didn't need to watch the video. I could hear it from over there popping and banging. That's pretty much exactly what I expected to see when I came around here. Fender flare removed. I'm thinking at this point, I could change my mind. Got plenty of time to do that, but I think at this point my plan, I'm going to run these tractor tires. You see how much taller it is than the tire that was on it. Without the spacers, in order to get the tire tucked in there a little more so it's not swinging over into the fender. Because you can see it didn't just get into that plastic fender flare. You actually see the rub mark there. What I almost forgot was this also will make a better wheeler. unhooking the sway bar links. And I got this thing jacked up, and I'm also thinking I was getting ready to pull the front bumper off. Looking at this, I might as well just get rid of that whole sway bar, although it does make kind of a nice bash guard for the steering rack. That's just a couple of pounds that don't really need to be going along for the ride if they're not doing anything. Shouldn't be too hard to get that out of there. So as far as getting the front bumper off, it's like it's not getting it, is it? There's a bolt right there, and there should be one right over here on the other side. I'm going to get rid of this scoop. This thing scoops air from this hole in the front bumper down low. So that's just going to be hanging down. Going to get ripped off anyway, and getting that out of the way will make it easier to get to these front bumper bolts. So let's get busy doing that. That's not as heavy as I expected it to be. I bet that's hollow. Alright, it is the next day. I got this jacked up and I was getting ready in preparation to put the mini spool in the rear here. Got called away yesterday for other things, but I'm back at it today. This is an 8.8 31 spline axle in here, obviously disc brakes. It is a C-clip axle. I think you get the idea, folks. I think I must have messed around with this for 30 minutes and I could not get it to budge. I finally decided I should just walk away and go do something else, but I did try the other side for a couple of minutes. Couldn't budge it either, but I did go ahead and run it through a heating cycle. Now, once I came back to it and everything had cooled down, they actually popped right off within a few seconds. So Alright folks, this can get kind of tricky. Near as I can tell, this is an 8mm bolt. I've dealt with this before on Ford 8.8 rear ends. You have to get this bolt out to get the cross pin out to get all these spider gears out. Now this is a 12-point wrench. There is some slop there, and I've run into this before. With a 12-point, it will round off. So you really want to try to find the 6-sided socket or wrench or whatever, and we'll see how that goes. A lot less chance of rounding that off, because there is some slop there too, as you can see. It may not even be an 8, it may be some weird 7.5 or something. Let's see how she goes. There we go. I think it went. Felt like it. There, yeah. Alright. So now that the cross pin is out, you can push your axle shafts in to get the C-clips off. I don't know where it went, but it's out of there. And the shaft slid out. That's right. And now, just pull all the spiders and side gears out. In theory, anyway. This is going to be a bugger. Now, I've never put a mini spool in anything but a 9-inch before. This is a multiple piece mini spool, and it looks fairly obvious the way it goes together, but maybe not. Come on, get in there. There you go. Do the other side. If you get in there. There we go. Now that those two pieces are in, looks to me like you should try to get your C-clips in. That could have been a finger smasher. I'm kind of torn about putting the C-clips back in. With this thing having disc brakes on it, the axles should never slide out if they break. So that means if the C-clip ever does break, the axles will stay in, but it will end up scattering debris inside the differential. Okay, this is a revolting development. Maybe I gotta spin it 180 degrees. Okay, that's interesting. You cannot get the C-clip in. Well, like I said, I don't really need the C-clips on this because the disc brakes will hold it in. Not sure that's the right way to do it or not, but yeah, as you can see, there just is not enough room for that C-clip to go in there. It'll fit in the little recess, but it will not fit in the groove that they've allowed for it. I'm going to shut the camera off and do a little thinking about this, about how I want to proceed. Okay, so I did just a little mock setup, obviously without the C-clip. I put all the brakes back on, got the rotor seated against the axle shaft. I just wanted to see how much movement was going to be here if I just relied on the brakes to hold it in. Yeah, it can't come out, but wow, that's a lot of wonkiness going on with the brakes. So I really only have two options to get this clip to fit in there. Number one is to just shave the edges of the clip down. Shouldn't take too much, and that's probably the option I'm going to take. Well, that's definitely the option I'm going to take. The only other option would be to open these up, and I feel that's a bad idea. It would work, but this piece here has to slide in there, and it would still work without open up, but there would just be slop in it. So every time you change directions or something, it gives this more momentum to slam into the, and it's eventually just gonna wallow that out by having that slop. So yeah, the better option is to just trim the clip down, which is what I'll do. Alrighty, problem solved, I hope. Makes it a little sloppy once it's down in there, but hopefully that won't be an issue. Kind of a tight fit. I should probably have cleaned that up and put some Loctite on it, but And there you go. She is all spooled. Ready for maximum traction action, bitches. Alright, got everything in the rear end buttoned back up. The only thing I need to do is put gear oil in that, but I'm letting the RTV on the rear cover gasket set up before I do that. Now the entire time I've been underneath there working, I've been eyeballing this tailpipe. And I think it's pretty obvious why this could be a problem. Let me kneel down here and show you. Get the idea? At best, and this is guaranteed, at some point, this is going to get jammed into the ground trying to climb something. At worst, when it gets jammed into the ground and backed up, it's going to grab it, and it's somewhere it's going to, just kink that exhaust and bend it all backwards. So with that in mind, I did find a hanger that was rusted out there and did a little fix. But anyway, back what I was saying. With that in mind, I think I'm going to trim it right here. And what's left of it should be mostly protected by the leaf spring. Alright, so now you're thinking, well hell, that's just pointed right at that and it's just going to keep exhaust fumes trapped underneath there. Not a problem. Not an ideal solution, but I think it'll do the job. Alright, now that that dilemma is solved, let me show you what I was doing when I had to walk away from trying to get those brakes apart. I was rounding up these tubes. I highly advocate for putting tubes in tires on an off-road vehicle. Yeah, because when you're off-roading, you want to run low tire pressure for better traction. And you know, you're in off-cambered, weird positions that, it's pretty common to push the bead off of the rim and poof, there goes your air. With a tube in there, that doesn't happen. You're not going to lose your air pressure. You might end up still pushing it off the bead and get a bunch of crap jammed in there. As you can see, the valve stem is the wrong type to use for these wheels. And not only is it the wrong type, it's in the wrong position too. They need to be more out here. And this one doesn't even have a valve stem. For some reason I had to cut that one off to get it out of the rim. But anyway, I'm going to take these, put them in roughly the position they need to be in, right about there, and glue them on, and then I will cut these off and put a patch over it. If you can count, you can see I only have 3 tubes. Time permits, I might go out and buy another tube. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave the one tire I got mounted up just the way it is, because having 3 is better than none, I guess. Can't be right, can it? Okay, it is. Yeah, something ain't right here. Okay, this plan just went to shit. Let's try another one. It's not doing any better. These things have either gotten old or the actual backing is not coming off, because I think that glossy part there should be coming off too. Yeah, what's underneath there doesn't seem to be any better. I think these are just old and no good. Alright, so I took my tire buffing wheel and I ground that layer of plastic off. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm going to go ahead and put a layer of rubber cement on this, let it dry, and then we'll try to stick it on there and see what happens. Alright, so here's what I did. I ended up starting with a new place here, cleaned it all up, put the rubber cement on it, re-cleaned the stem, put rubber cement on it, let them both dry, and it seems to be sticking. Got a second one here, also seems to be doing pretty good. I'm getting ready, waiting for this cement to dry here so I can do the third one. I'm still not feeling warm and fuzzy about them holding, but we'll see. Once I get this last valve stem stuck on this tube, I got 2 of the rims that are going on this that are outside that I need to get off the rims. So it's like 100 degrees outside. You know, for some of you in some parts of the country, 100 degrees is nothing. I understand that. But here in the Midwest, 100 degrees is something because of the humidity. It's been said before, it's not the heat, it's the humidity, and that is true. Third one seems to be sticking. Now, as you might have noticed, I just stuck that valve stem on there and I didn't put a hole in it. That could come afterwards. You just remove the valve stem core, take a piece of wire, and punch through there. I'm probably not going to mess with these anymore today. I'll mess with them tomorrow. I'll deflate them, cut the original valve stem off, put a patch over that, and hopefully they'll be good to go. I'm just going to fire up the loader over there and use the forks to break the beads on these, and I'll get them peeled off the rims. Got the rims wrestled off of those old tires and went down to the shed and got the other 2 tractor tires. So yeah, I've been out in the heat. As you can tell, I'm a little sweaty. Got them halfway mounted up, ready to stuff the tubes in. Once I get them finished up, it's kind of odd. Not odd, really. I guess I got these tires from up in an area where years ago I used to mud race. So I'm guessing somebody was, cutting these out, getting ready to mud race these, or did, or I don't know. The whole tire isn't that way, just maybe 14 inches of it here. The other 3 tires are not that way. But anyway, I'm going to call it a day. I got to go in, take a shower, get ready for work, because I don't know what they'd do without me at work. Alright, it is the next morning. I just got home from work. Come out the shop, decided I was going to cut those valve stems off and patch those up. Well, we've got a couple problems. Number one, there's this pesky little critter flying around in here. That's not a bird, that's a bat. Happens every so often here. But yeah, tuck my hair up in my hat and go on. But yeah, this was one of them. The tubes, it didn't fall off on its own. It was halfway peeled off and I just grabbed it and pulled it off nice and easy. So let's try the other 2. Yep, that is not going to work. And Alright, looks like this afternoon I'm going to run into town, see if I can buy some new tubes. So I went to the local farm and home tire shop. That's usually where I go to get tubes. And we dug around. They didn't really have... Okay, they had a 950 by 16.5. Okay, that'll work. Wrong valve stem. I want to keep the small valve stem that this rim has. I don't want to drill these out because it is entirely possible after this Explorer gets trashed, I'll use these tires on something else, and maybe the rims will still survive and I can use those on something else. So I don't really want to modify the rims. But anyway, we dug around. We could not find any, well, we found one 950/16. Again, it had the valve stem that was just too big. So I thought, well, what about like a trailer tire, a 750 by 16? Because that's what these are. They're a 750/16, and they easily stretch out big enough to fill that tire. So we dug around, we found some 750/16s, and it had the right size valve stem. I only had 2 of them though, so he'll have 2 more on Monday. It is Thursday right now. Yeah, just to look at them, get it out of here. Got the right size valve stem. Doesn't really look like it'll stretch out enough, but I'm going to go air one up and we'll see. Yes, that will definitely stretch out big enough to fill that 9.5 by 16 tractor tire. Another nice thing about these, they were only $16 a piece. I was expecting to be paying minimum of 25 to a little over 30 a piece. So, not surprisingly, the valve stem doesn't seem to be in just the right spot, so I'm going to have to do my old trick of putting a hose clamp on it to keep it from getting sucked into the tire. Second one done. Now this one took 25 pounds of pressure to seat the bead. That one took 20. I've got them aired down to 12. Might go a little lower than that, I don't know. Because of the high pressure that it took to seat these beads, it should be a little tougher than usual to knock these tires off the bead, but it's still possible when you're wheeling. Now here's another good reason for putting tubes in a tire, because it's old. When I bought these, they were flat and they were mounted on rims. 3 of them were. And because they were flat, I could see the sidewall cracks, but they didn't look nearly this bad like they do now with 12 pounds in them. Yeah, and the bead can be all chewed up from age, so another good reason to put a tube in it. Man, seeing these cracks in it makes me wonder, these things got quite a few years on them. These were probably out on the track right about the time I was mud racing back then, which I think I got out of it around maybe 2008, somewhere around there. Maybe a couple years before, I don't know. Yeah, it might have been earlier than that. Don't matter anyway, got 2 of them done. That's about as good a view as you're going to get for now until I get it outside. I think this skid plate came off of this. Years ago when I brought this thing home and I changed all the fluids in it, I got that out of the way so I could change the fluid in the transfer case, and I never put it back on thinking, well, this thing's never going to need that. Well, it might need it now. Very real chance it's going to need that now. So I'll slap that back on too this afternoon before I call it a day. Alright folks, it is Saturday afternoon. We'll be wheeling next weekend. That's the plan anyway. Kitty says, ow. Must be hurting. Get a spot on him right there. He keeps tearing that thing back open somehow. Anyway, did get the diff filled. I went to put that skid plate on for the transfer case. It's not off of this vehicle. It's too wide. And yeah, I probably threw that skid plate away. Plus, I noticed the skid plate for the gas tank is gone. I don't remember taking that off, although maybe I did. I guess the only theory I could think of for taking that off is, yeah, the salt here, the between the skid plate and the gas tank would just get packed full of dirt soaked with salt, and it would just rust the gas tank out. So maybe I did pull it out. Doesn't matter now, it's gone. I cannot find it. And as you can see, that fuel tank hangs pretty low. This thing doesn't have a lot of ground clearance anyway, and the tank is pretty long. So it's, I would bet it would be inevitable that it would actually get drug on something. I'm thinking I'd better get a skid plate on that. I do have a parts explorer out there. I'm gonna roll it over. Should be able to at least salvage the skid plate for the transfer case. That should be the same, but the skid plate for the fuel tank might be different because it's a four-door Explorer. But let's go find out. Well, this is a revolting development. No skid plate for the transfer case or for the fuel tank. Don't know if I can find some time to go hit a junkyard this week or not. Really should have those skid plates. Alright, I've moved on to the front for the toe points. As you can see, I've cleaned up one frame rail here already. Initially. It'll probably get some more than that once I come up with a plan on what to put up here. When you're dealing with a bracket that you don't want to save, and this is a prime example of this, there's a weld right here, one right under here, and it's welded here and here. And as I was saying, if it's a bracket you don't want to save, just cut it up into pieces and deal with one weld at a time instead of trying to get all four of them off of there. I'll show you what I mean. God damn it. Fucker snuck up on me like a ninja. Alright, so it took me pretty much 10 minutes to do this one side, and I was even fiddle fucking around with the camera. So it's not that hard to do. You just gotta work smart, not stupid, or some, whatever that saying goes. How does that saying go?
Work smarter, not harder.
Ah, there you go. So, went up in the field. I got a bunch of obviously rusty pipes sitting on there on a old Bronco frame. Harvested a little bit of it. I was thinking I might use this for a bumper, although I found this. I probably won't use it, but it might come in handy for brackets and for the tow hook mounts on the rear bumper. Let's get to work. Now, I wasn't sure if I just wanted to run something right across from frame rail to frame rail and that was it, and leave these open out here. But I figure with the low amount of ground clearance this has, it might be better to just go ahead and bring them out for a little more. I don't know why I'm trying to protect the body, because we're kind of just assuming it's going to get destroyed eventually anyway. But regardless, I'm going to run them full width. But I don't want just, you know, look at the curvature of this grill. I don't want some straight piece of pipe out here. It would just look, oh, awful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to notch the pipe and tweak it back a little bit. It won't be a perfect fit, but it'll help flow with the lines of the body. Not nearly enough. Alright, I'm not really digging this, but I think I am going to carry on. It's, God. I don't know why I feel like I have to protect these corners. Maybe mostly because I want to protect the battery. At least try to protect the body for a while. You know, like I think I mentioned it already. Who knows, this might make a good long-term Wheelin vehicle. Might end up, you know, cutting all of that out of there, the independent, sticking a Ford half-ton axle with radius arms underneath there. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not crazy about this look, but I am going to carry on with it. I'm pretty sure the camera's picking it up. There's different gaps from here to here. I don't know if the frame and the body are tweaked, or it might just be my bends. Yeah, there, folks. It might be the bends. I'm not focusing. There we go. It might be just the bends in my tubing right here might be the problem. And initially I was going to mount it down lower, right in the middle of the frame rail, but I kind of like it tucked up like that. But I'm going to clean up the frame rails and tack weld it in place and see if I can't tweak the two sides to get them to match, kind of. And there should be enough room to get in there and weld the whole thing after that. And then I'll put some extra braces in here on the bottom and then mount some tow hooks on the top. All right, we're getting along. But got the gaps welded, if you call it welded. It was, yeah, here's what it looked like. And it was pretty much just welded along the top seam of this frame rail. I'm using some, what is this, 2.5 or, yeah, I think that's 2.5 inch box tubing. That, yeah, turn it this way. I'll shape that up to fill that gap and get it tied into more of the frame rail like I've done on that side. Oh man, I don't know what is going on, but you ever run across somebody that tells you that I can't weld? Based on today's results, I wouldn't argue with them. I don't know what is going on, but I just cannot weld today. Maybe the wire in my welder's rusty from all the humidity in the air lately. I don't know, but I wouldn't count on it. I am just doing an awful job at welding. Alright, got this one pretty well shaped. I could get it a little bit better, but with the way my welding skills are going, I don't think it's gonna matter. Fits a little something like that. Alright, these are gonna be my tow hook mounts. Cut this out of some box tubing, as you can see. Got the holes drilled for the hooks. Slice it in half, and then I'm going to weld each half of this to one side of the rear bumper. This one will be the front. I'll only be using this, and it will basically be welded onto there. Well, not quite like that, but it'll be sunk in a little bit. But there'll just be a single tow hook here on the front. Alright folks, it is the following Monday. I left off yesterday working on this front bumper. As you can see, I got the front tow hook done, but I did change course of what I was going to do. I went ahead and cut another 4-inch piece of that rectangular box tubing, and I cut it differently so I got more weld area and some triangulation there, and I just added a couple of gussets here. Now, some people might be wondering why I don't put a tow hook here and here on each side. And I think that looks better, and it's probably arguably more convenient, especially when you're stuck in a mud hole and you're trying to hook it up by leaning way over the vehicle here. But this was intentional, just doing one. I started out based on how thin these frame rails were. I figured I wanted all my towing force to be applied to both frame rails instead of having it hooked over here where it would concentrate most of the towing force on one frame rail. Plus my crappy welds that I was doing yesterday. I don't know what was going on. Well, I think I do know now. I got back out here last night. I had to quit in the afternoon because I had some other things I had to do. Got home in the evening, came back out here and worked on this. Got that front tow point done. As you can see, the welds are a lot better. I just kind of accidentally noticed that the regulator on my shielding gas had gotten bumped and turned down. So I think that's what it was. It sure was welding a lot better last night. I still get an occasional spatter here and there, so maybe that is some rust due to humidity out here. But anyway, I'm only going to have time today to finish up the rear toe points. I couldn't do them last night because I needed some grade 8 bolts. Had to go into town and get those today, along with the 2 remaining tubes that I needed. Where'd they go? I don't know, they're around here somewhere. There they are. I was hoping to get the tires done today and get those on there, and yeah, the rear toe points, but just not enough time this afternoon, so I'm just going to concentrate and hopefully I can get the rear toe points done. Alright, pretty respectable welds there. Now, because it would be such a pain in the butt to get a wrench in there and nuts on that, I went ahead and before I welded this whole thing down, I bolted the tow hook to the bracket and then I welded the nut on the bottom side of the bracket. Now, once this vehicle is trashed and it's no longer wheelable, I can at least salvage the tow hooks by just zipping the bolts out. So now I'm in pretty good shape here. I've got, 6-7 days to go. Just got to finish up the rear tires. Skid plates, I still got to deal with that. Now I did look it up and I found that the 2-door Explorer and the 4-door have different gas tanks, so they're going to have different skid plates too, obviously. I'm probably going to be about impossible to find one in a junkyard in a timely manner. I might just have to go find a 4-door one and see if I can modify it. Maybe it just needs to be shortened up or something, but yeah, I definitely want skid plates underneath this, especially that gas tank. Alright folks, it's now Wednesday. I spent my time yesterday scouring the junkyards to find a couple of skid plates. It proved to be much more difficult than I thought it would be, but I finally did get a pair. As you can see, they're not terribly beefy, but I figure they might be better than nothing. If you get the entire weight of the vehicle on one of these in a concentrated spot, they're going to cave. But like I said, it's better than nothing. This one's out of a 4-door Explorer, and yeah, most of them didn't even have them. The great thing about these two in particular, they didn't put up much of a fight. They came out nice and easy. I measured the 2-door in there, and it is roughly 42 inches from the bolt holes to the end. Yeah, this one is obviously longer. I'm going to go ahead and bolt it up at the front, try getting it to fit in there and see what exactly I'm going to have to do to it. My guess is I will probably have to just kind of section it in here somewhere and shorten it up in that way, but that one should fit with no modifications at all. Alright, so I could not even get this thing physically wrestled up there in place. It is just too long. This thing hits the drive shaft yoke, and that gets into the jack stand in the frame, but by my rough measurements, I think I need to take out about 10¼ inches. This little notch here appears to be to clear the leaf spring mount, so I need to leave that in. I think what I'm going to try to do, instead of actually taking the 10¼ out of it, I'm going to cut it here, and then I'll try bolting the 2 halves in place, overlapping this extra 10¼ and if that does work and it fits pretty well, I should be able to just weld it together that way, and it'll actually definitely add more strength in the middle by having it double layered there. Alright, initial fit was pretty decent. I did have to go ahead and notch this to clear for the leaf spring hanger that was already on that side, and I got this all cleaned up, ready to slap it back in there and do some welding. Well, here's the final fit. Not great, but I think I can deal with that. I think I'll start by getting the edges here, maybe right in there, and then I'll just keep moving the jack and push the board up in and get contact. Now I could just tack weld this in a few places, drop it out, and then weld it. I might do that yet, but I'm kind of afraid I'll just warp it all to hell and I'll never get it back in place. So I'm probably at this point thinking I'm just going to weld it while it's in here. Yep, I'm going to weld it while it's already up against that gas tank. So wish me luck on this, or if you don't like me, wish my demise. Well, as you can see, I had a little bit of a change of heart. And there were some huge gaps to fill in there too, where that fitment was not great. Plus, as an additional benefit, it allowed me to put some beads on this other seam too. It was inaccessible while it was in there. This ought to be cooled off enough in a couple minutes. I can slap it back in there. Hopefully it doesn't appear to be warped. And then I'll get the transfer case skid plate on there. And that's probably all the time I'm going to have for today. Alright, there we go. As I said before, not particularly robust, but maybe they'll be better than nothing. Especially considering this right here is double thickness right there in what could arguably be the most vulnerable spot. Alright, so another afternoon has passed. I got the other two tires done, and that one took 25 pounds of pressure to get the bead to seat, and this one took 30. I should be able to get them thrown on the rig, put her on the ground, and we'll see how she looks. And yes, I am running the tractor tires backwards, and I have my reasons for that. There it is, folks, in all its glory. I'm running 12 pounds in the front, 10 in the rear. Might modify that. I'd go out and play a little bit today, but I have other things that I need to attend to this afternoon with what little time I have left. So I think I'm just going to call this video done. If you want to see it wheel, you're just going to have to watch the next video. This event we're going to, there's supposed to be another beater 4-door Explorer that's going to wheel with us. Guys I met went up and bought a frame on off of a Facebook marketplace. Got to talking to them. They thought it sounded like fun to throw a beater together, so we're going to try that. I did take this for just a quick little easy lap around the property. I've got it in 4-low, and yeah, without those sway bars, you can really feel it wobble around. Did smell something burning. Checked it out. I forgot that the valve cover gasket was leaking on this, and apparently it's sitting around for a year. It's gotten a little bit worse, so maybe tomorrow I'll get out here, try to snug that down, go out and play with it a little bit, see if there's any more further modifications I need to do to it real quick. But there's only a couple days left, and I still got to get my wheeling rig ready. So yeah, like I said, if you want to see it wheeling, you're just going to have to catch the next video. Thanks for watching.